Welcome back, audience. Mondays Down South is back in action here. We have a special guest, one of my old neighbors, and the guy who taught me how to play basketball by picking my pocket every single time I tried to dribble the ball. Mr. James Wells is in the building. James, what's up, man?
And hello, how you doing? Good. I mean, I'm definitely excited to do this. Usually I just argue with idiots on Twitter, so it's nice to talk to people who are knowledgeable. So I appreciate the invite.
For those of you who don't know, James works at Oracle, so he thinks he's a sport oracle, but he's actually the furthest thing from it. This man will come at hot takes out of the sky here. I see him with his little slide in Atlanta here, 28-3. You know, not too happy seeing that as a guy who had to watch that with Cy in person with my Falcons. And I even stopped paying attention after the third quarter. Cy, you have to
we're not glossing over this, all right? We're not glossing over this, buddy. This man over here, we're watching the game. Falcons are up 28-30, or 28-3, sorry, not 30. They go to halftime. We're at our buddy Pat's place. There's like Chipotle, like catering, like we're having a good time. Zach completely tunes out of the game. Like he's laying back, he's chit-chatting, he's talking about anything but football. Like he's talking about his hot date on Friday night. He's talking about you know what he's gonna have for lunch the next day. He's talking about what Miss Bakulik cooked up. You know, he's talking about everything but football. And it's 28-3, and I look over at him, and he's like straight lounging back in his chair, like just not doing anything. And I'm like,
Zach, I'm doing everything, man. I'm talking hella shit.
I'm like, Zach, we're watching an NFL Super Bowl game, and you're playing the winningest team ever. Do not count your chickens before they hatch. And he's like laughing. He's like cracking up. He's goofing off. He's like, there's no way. And slowly you see them climbing, like they start scoring. And Zach's still not paying attention. And then all of a sudden you see this like shift in his dynamic. Like after the Edelman catch.
I knew it. The Edelman catch.
All of a sudden he's paying attention. And I'm like, what happened, Zach? Like, what you doing here, buddy? And then we watched the end, and he was like, the guy that was talking more than anybody in that basement could not say a word at the end of that game. Like, normally I'd have sympathy, but I was like, dude, you did this to yourself.
It's Zach though. I grew up across the street from him. I mean, he's been that guy since I've known him. So I was kind of happy to see this happen, but I mean, we're now how many years later, and Zach's actually had 2 more instances of the same kind of thing. So
if it was anybody but the Patriots, I think I would have been very excited.
If you guys ran the ball, you guys would have won the game. Why were you guys throwing? It makes no sense.
I know, man. Kyle Shanahan's the blame over here, and I think he's trying to put the rails back in San Francisco. But just a couple of quick other stories of games.
Let's blame Kyle Shanahan, not Dan Quinn, who just got fired. All right, let's keep going.
It's a good point.
I mean, we could have used a player like James as a DB for Atlanta, because he would play backyard football with us back in the day, where we were, you know, scrapping to get by. It was just like an excuse to go over to the Stonebridge football games afterwards and celebrate. But I do remember one particular incident of you catching the ball and then getting flatlined.
I remember that, dude. That was epic.
Rocked you.
I can't believe you remember that. That was in Zach's backyard. Wow.
Yeah.
I cannot believe. And you're okay. You did a concussion protocol and everything?
It was that was the beauty of it. It was such a clean, just a clean hit. Everyone was fine. No one got hurt. You can't beat it, man. It was just good football.
I love when you guys came over to our neighborhood, man. Those were good times. Yeah. Neighborhood against neighborhood, great time.
Wait, who rocked who? I need to know who rocked who.
Oh, he crushed me.
James against Ev. Okay.
Yeah. I was going up for a catch and
just destroyed Evan the moment he touched the ball.
It was bad. It was like that buddy pass on the screen. Yeah, of the Eagles. I mean, he was horizontal, but
it's honestly amazing.
That's true.
It's honestly amazing how long we played backyard football with no pads, like full force hitting each other without injuries, until Zach supposedly tore my ACL our senior year of high school. Like that was the end all be all.
Wait, what do you mean supposedly? Because like you're talking to a guy. I actually tore my ACL like 3 or 4 years ago, which sucks.
Okay, no, we're playing backyard football we're playing backyard football in the mud, James. And I'm literally running. I'm like running left, like I'm the quarterback on the play. I'm running left, and Zach, along with 3 other people, like grab me, and I'm dragging them, and I fall over, like on my knee while I'm dragging them, and then Zach gets up and he's like, I'm like, dude, I broke my knee, and everybody's like, no, you'll be fine. And then like the next day at school, Zach tells everybody he tore my ACL. Like, I come into school, I'm like, what, dude? I was dragging you like you're 5 yards. Like, get out of here, bro. I don't
know how we made it out of all those tackle football games.
I know, right?
It's actually unbelievable because you couldn't pay me to play tackle football. Like you couldn't. I mean, we used to tackle each other in the backyard. It's like that's an ACL waiting to happen. But hey, we made it. We made it.
We're here now.
We're here now.
Yeah, we're here now. We're here now.
I guess we're here to talk sports on this podcast. So Zach, tee us up, buddy.
I mean,
sounds good. Well, hey,
go
James,
ahead.
One thing I wanted to bring up.
Sure.
Obviously, the NFL schedules just came out. You're a big Washington football team guy. I know Atlanta week 4. But what have you seen in terms of the schedule that's most appealing, and who do you guys start off with first game of the season?
So we start off with the Chargers, which I think is going to be tough because I think Hibbert's going to take a big jump this year. I finally actually sat down to watch all of his tape, and he's that good. So I think it's good in the sense that our defense is going to get pushed by a true gunslinger who can move in the pocket. But I don't know if we're going to have all of our ducks in a row because we need those linebackers that we drafted to be ready to rock like week 1. But it's tough, man. You know, NFC East sometimes is tough, but I feel like sometimes some years it doesn't matter the NFC East schedule. Our games against the Cowboys and the Giants and the Eagles are always tough. And the Eagles getting what I say is the best receiver in the draft. I think it's going to be a nightmare. I truly think Devontae Smith's going to be an absolute nightmare in the NFC East. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. We have some tough games, but we'll see.
And what about you? What do you think of Washington's schedule, and is there any specific opponent that you guys are worried about this year, or what's the initial thoughts?
I mean, we got AFC West, so that means Mahomes. But it's going to be a tough schedule because they have the whole kind of unbalanced thing. So we won the division despite being a very average team. So the schedule is going to be tough. But I think just after a quick pick, the thing that stuck out to me is the last 5 games are all within the division. So you're going to be able to either make up some ground or potentially lose some ground there down the stretch.
Wow, that's a big December for us.
5 in a row, yeah. So and then it should be a good week, a very interesting week 1. You got obviously rookie of the years head to head there with Chase. So
I got to get Evan's take on Fitzmagic.
My gut reaction was a little like not disappointed, but I think part of me wanted a more mediocre quarterback in the sense that Heineke would actually get an opportunity to compete. Because at this point, it's like they're technically saying it's a competition, but it's not. It's Magic's teams.
In the same way the Dolphins were a competition, but we were just waiting to do it. Right.
Exactly. But looking at it now, it's like obviously the chances of a Heineke or like a Trubisky or a Mariota or all the other guys we were thinking about actually turning out to be a franchise guy or a guy that you're willing to start week in and week out is small enough to the point where it's like, all right, let's just get the best available option. And then worry about quarterback next year. So I think like going into next year's draft, I genuinely think we're going to be in a position where we're like a quarterback away and you can almost sell the farm to get one. So, so I'm definitely down with it. I've come around on it pretty quickly. And I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch on offense and defense. So
I agree.
Yeah, you mentioned AFC West, Ev. In terms of Mahomes possibly seeing Rodgers if he does go to Denver, what do you guys think of those rumors? You guys buy into them, or do you think Rodgers is just a little unhappy, he needs to just sort it out with the GM, and he'll be a Packer this season?
Oh man, I keep assuming things about the situation, and then the next day the headline something different. I mean, Rodgers and the GM have always been on opposite sides of the weeks. I mean, we hear Rodgers isn't playing. The GM says we're not moving him anywhere. I think Rodgers plays for the Packers this season. I think that's how that's going to pan out. But I do think he's wildly unhappy, which for good reason. I mean, there's a couple of things that if I'm a Packers fan, we were a couple positions away, and for some reason they didn't pick up those positions in the draft. It kind of, made Rodgers have to do a little more than he has to, which is pretty crazy talking about Rodgers. So I think he ends up on the Packers, but this drama's not going to help the locker room at all.
Well, I mean, you hear about like how he one day was like, "Oh, I really like this receiver. Like he's gonna, it was like third, fourth string." I remembered his name. I'm forgetting now,
Sure.
but he really liked the guy, and he was like talking about like how he liked him and how he wanted to like help, nurture him and like turn him into a solid NFL receiver. They cut him the next day, like things like that. You draft Jordan Love in the draft last year after you literally have a franchise quarterback that just won 13 games with you the season before. He goes out and wins an MVP the next season. Like you give him another receiver, a little bit more defensive help, you probably have a Super Bowl. Like
Exactly.
there's a good chance you beat the Buccaneers when you came down the line, or maybe you let him throw for a touchdown. The MVP of the NFL, the best quarterback in the league, maybe you give him a chance to throw for a touchdown instead of kicking a field goal. Like there are so many reasons why I understand why Aaron Rodgers is upset. Like even if you're winning with that team, they have done nothing to honor you as the guy that you deserve to be honored as, because I feel like more often than not, he's been willing to like take the back, his first season with the new head coach, like they were running the football a ton and he did not complain at all. He owned up to it. Then the next season he played within the system and then, played as an MVP. Like Rodgers has been that kind of guy for the Packers, and they've done barely anything to support him. They're not willing to pay money to guys to help them. They're always trying to go in-house when they have the option to give them options. I get it. The problem ultimately is who would the Packers be willing to trade him to, even if it gets to the point where it's toxic? And like people keep talking about Denver and all these places, but like what could they honestly give back to get Aaron Rodgers? You know what I mean? Like that is so like an MVP has never been traded the season after he won MVP, right? So the price tag is going to be so hard to figure out with his age, given his just recent performance. So that's why I kind of side with James on this in the sense of I don't see him. I just don't see him getting traded because of that. To be honest, though, I hope he does. Like I hope he gets a fresh start somewhere else.
Me too.
And to Zach's point, actually, James, is regardless of whether he goes to Denver or whether he stays in Green Bay, he's still playing Patrick Mahomes this season. And I was actually going to say that later when you asked me what my favorite game this season was going to be, because if he's in Green Bay, that's going to be an amazing game. So I'm just getting that up right now. Yep.
Wow. That's going to be. That's going to be all. Now I'm wondering, did you guys hear? And some of this is rumor, so I'm curious your guys' take. When they drafted Love, I heard that Rodgers didn't know about it. I heard they did it kind of behind his back. Did you guys hear the same thing?
Oh, I'm not
I heard
surprised.
that too. Yeah.
Did you? Yeah, I heard he found out about it like via social media, which is just like downright embarrassing for a guy of his stature to find out of such a draft pick in that way. I do think it's interesting what he said about like what could Denver give them that would even equate to, I mean, they would need an infinity stone. Like what are they gonna offer on their team? They don't have, receivers. Like what does Denver have that's enough to equal, as he said, the best, throwing quarterback in the league?
Well, I think the rumors are you would give a first round pick of 2022. You would give off Surtain, because Surtain, many people called him the best corner off the board. JC Horns, go Cox, right side, but at the end of the day, I think Surtain comes from that Bama product where you get that staple of approval. It's just a guarantee essentially that he's going to be a good corner. And so, you have a couple of weapons to play with. Their defense, I think Denver's defense is going to be great this season. Arguably, if you look at their defensive backs, they just locked in Justin Simmons on a big deal. They picked up Kyle Fuller in free agency, a sneaky, very good corner. And then they also got Surtain. So you definitely think they could maybe auction off maybe that rookie. And then they would obviously have to give up some first round capital for the years afterwards. But I think this would be a pretty good recipe for success if Rodgers did go to Denver. I heard the Washington rumors, but I don't know. I think at the moment I hear about this, I think he's just going to stay as a Green Bay Packer, and I think that'll be good. Especially if you can finish his career out there. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think outside of that, do you guys want to jump into the NFL draft and everything like that?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. So just for the viewers, we had essentially picked one person that was drafted in the first round that we really either enjoyed or disliked based on the value of that selection. So, for example, if someone threw out Justin Fields, we could talk about, should he have fallen that far in the draft? Did you guys like the Chicago pick essentially? So we kind of just went back and forth. We each picked one player. James, I'll start with you. You've had a couple days to think about it. Who was one player that you liked or disliked, and bring him forth, man?
So, I mean, you just talked about him, but I got to talk about Justin Fields. Justin Fields in general is just blowing my mind. I'm glad I get to talk to you guys about it because I've never seen a guy with this much talent have such a vast variety of basically critiquing. I mean, I've heard he's going to be, one of the best quarterbacks of the class. I've heard he can't read a defense. I've heard he has no IQ. I've heard he's the smartest quarterback we've ever seen. So it's everybody's so all over the place about him, and then he dropped in the stock. But like, I watched his highlights all day today and all day yesterday, and I used to not be on the Fields train, but I'm all in. I think he's fantastic, hell of an athlete. I didn't realize he's 6'3", 227. I mean, he's a great size. He runs well. And I think at the very least, I mean, Evan can definitely speak to this. Like, sometimes, even if you're not doing well, it's really nice to have entertainment, which is exactly what we have with RG3. Like, did it pan out? No, but I got really entertaining football for multiple years. I can remember where I was sitting when he ran that 73-yard touchdown against the Vikings. Like, it's really exciting to have that. And I think the Bears now have a chance to actually have some excitement. So I actually used to not be on the Fields train. I kind of believed all the critiquing and that he can't get through his progressions. And I watched him throw 5 touchdowns in the Super Bowl, in the Sugar Bowl against Clemson. I'm like, what are you guys talking? Like, this is crazy. This guy's throwing 5 touchdowns against arguably the best defense besides Bama. And now we're talking about this guy could get through his reads. It's just, it was strange to me. So I really want to know everybody's take on Justin Fields. One, do you think he's going to do well? And if you don't, like, what's your critiquing of him? So anybody can jump in on that one.
That honestly is my take as well. I couldn't quite figure out, I kind of figured when it came to draft day, all the talk around him falling would go away and he'd still fall into the top 10. But it's hard for me to get over, like you said, that Clemson game. Some of the critiques they have on him. And it's if you just watch that game, arguably, one of the biggest games of his college career, I get it's just one game, but he was, he excelled in all of those areas. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. It kind of seemed like it was at the beginning, people were just kind of watered down with Fields because he's been such a big name for a long time. And that when it came to draft day, he would still go top 10. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I think he's going to do really well. I think it's a nice fit with the Bears and a good move to trade up on their part. And, we'll see, but I'm on the train as well.
100%. And I think he's having this, and we do this with all quarterbacks. It's really tough not to, but it's is he another Ohio State quarterback? Which is the exact same thing that's happening to Mac Jones. Everyone thinks Mac Jones is A.J. McCarron. You were surrounded by talent. That's the only reason you were good. And now people are saying the same kind of thing about Justin Fields. How many athletic quarterbacks have we seen from Ohio State pan out to absolutely nothing? I mean, as in not even playing quarterback for the next couple of seasons when they make it to the NFL. And I think sometimes it doesn't really make sense because I feel like Trey Lance is only getting the hype that he is because of Wentz. So now it's a positive thing to come from it, So it's interesting how all over the place we are with, he went to Ohio State. Maybe he's another Ohio State quarterback, but how many guys from Carson Wentz school, we were wrong about him. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing how there are correlations there based on recency bias and prior drafts. So you had mentioned Carson Wentz. I'm also looking at Josh Allen. These guys that are gunslingers with huge arms. Justin Fields has a huge arm. Trey Lance is a huge arm, but Trey Lance comes from those schools that are not necessarily, D1 SEC. They kind of come from, worse competition, but they're just amazing athletes. And
right.
You see the success stories of the Josh Allens and the Carson Wentz's, a couple of years back when, he led Philly to that 13-3 season. So it is tempting to take a Trey Lance there. And I do think there is a correlation there, despite the fact that many coaches probably wouldn't agree. But to the Justin Fields conversation, I totally thought that San Francisco was smoke screening for Trey Lance, yada, yada, yada. I thought they were going to get Justin Fields the entire way. Now, Ev disagreed with me because Ev was looking at reports and stuff. I didn't believe those because I think Kyle Shanahan is so all over the place that I think he was like getting like personal enjoyment from the confusion. But I was so surprised when Justin Fields did not go 3 because of everything you just said, James. He's played in 2 championship games for 2 different teams. And he's been like nothing but great, been nothing but class, and I was greatly surprised. But I mean, hey, Cy, you're an SEC guy. What'd you think of the whole Justin Fields thing and the fact that he fell even past 9? I thought he was going to go to Denver.
I think it was a great pick for Chicago to trade up and go get him because at the end of the day, like they didn't give up as much as teams in the past did to get a quarterback because you're getting a guy that like was graded as one of the based on what your team was doing, a top 4 to 5 quarterback. And a lot of other drafts, like if you look at Carson Wentz, for example, you look at the Goffs of the world, teams traded a lot away to move up to get those guys. And I feel like Chicago got a guy that they believe could be their franchise quarterback for not as much of a price tag as you would pay for a franchise quarterback in the past because they were able to get him outside of the top 10. I think the ceiling is the limit for him, right? Because athleticism-wise, his arm talent-wise, his stature-wise, he's got the make to be an amazing NFL quarterback. And you guys talk about the Clemson game. Everybody that watched Clemson game was like, whoa, Justin Fields, like this guy's a top 5 pick this year. Like I think that's kind of the energy. But admittedly, when you watch him in his other highlights, you see that concern in the sense of what you see from previous Ohio State quarterbacks, where it's because of their offense, you don't see a lot of plays where he's hitting that 15-yard comeback like on the sideline where you're hitting the court. Like, and I'm not saying that's an easy throw, but when you go watch Zach Wilson and when you go to watch Trevor Lawrence, you see those plays, and I think that's where maybe some of the concern with Fields is in the sense of like and that's not his fault, right? It's not like his offense was like asking him to do that. Within his offense, he was terrific. The other thing to look at is his passing numbers because, admittedly, and again, you can't buy too much into college, but passing wise, he's an amazing rusher. So you got to keep that in mind. However, passing wise, if you look at like accuracy and his yardage and everything like that, they were solid. I'm not by no means were they bad. They were definitely good and well above average. However, when compared to the other guys that went above him, at least when you look at the Division I guy, like the D1 guys, again, we're talking the Trevor Lawrences, the Wilsons, the Mac Jones. Passing numbers wise, all of those guys kind of had a leg up on him. So I think that's also part of the concern for people in the sense of when you look at just straight passing, like, what is he going to be in the NFL? However, with all that being said, I don't want to keep belaboring the point. I think his potential is through the roof. I just think he's going to need a little bit of time. Like he could I'm not saying he's going to be Mahomes, but if you give him a year like they gave Mahomes, not that he's going to get that much time to sit, but if you give him that amount of time to develop, you don't just throw him to the wildfire, then I think he's got a lot of potential. He's not somebody I'd want to throw out there game 1 and just be like, good luck, buddy, because Chicago is a really good team. So I think they're going to be tempted to do that. Like, because outside of the court, like if they had a good quarterback the last couple of years, we'd be talking about Chicago as a shoo-in for the playoffs every year because at every other position, they had strengths, like every single position. Their running back situation improved. They have good receivers and guys like Allen Robinson who've been frustrated because they've had nobody to throw them the ball. And then defensively, they've had a really, really, really solid front forever with Khalil Mack like leading the troops and a good defense behind them with young guys supporting the cause. So I don't know. I really think that with a good quarterback, they could succeed, which makes me worry that they're going to rush Fields to try to be great right off the bat. So that's kind of that was my one concern with Chicago's approach to Fields, even though I love that they drafted him.
Yeah, ideally he needs to sit for an entire season, even if it's behind a guy like Dalton. Now, I don't want Dalton teaching my quarterback how to play quarterback, but but it's still good for him to like sit and watch. I wholeheartedly agree. He's definitely gonna need some time. But I'm interested in your point about the comeback routes and all that, because in all the Fields highlights I watched, I didn't see any of those window passes, sideline catches, all that kind of thing. So, maybe that's the delta right there between the Trevor Lawrences and Justin's. Again, like you said, it's not his fault. He kind of has some of the plays, I kind of feel like Justin Fields plays football in the same way we all used to play Madden. No matter what, I'm hitting B. And usually in Ohio State, B is usually open. So he doesn't have to, when your buddy's sitting next to you, he's like, dude, why was open? It's like, I didn't see him. I was throwing to B the whole time. So I feel like Fields just stares down his receivers, but you can learn. He can learn.
James, how dare you bring up like video games and Ohio State quarterbacks? Because like I immediately go back to when Braxton Miller hit the B button spin move on Virginia Tech.
Oh, on Virginia Tech, man, that was brutal, man. I'm sorry, man. They should have shut down Tots after that.
Switching it over to you, E. All right, who's your player? When do you get selected? It's all you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've kind of been on a weird Jets train today. So I'm going to take the Jets trading back into the first round to get Elijah Vera-Tucker at 14. Admittedly, I thought he went a little later, so I think 14 is actually maybe about right. But I just like the Jets going up back into the first round, getting another lineman to protect Zach Wilson, and really just the whole package of what they did during the draft, getting weapons later with the UNC running back as well as Elijah Moore, which was a great pick. So I think going back up, getting a lineman who, again, 14 is probably about right, but with drafting Becton at tackle last year, they're probably planning on playing Vera-Tucker more at guard, which he's a little better suited for. So all of a sudden, they've got pretty good weapons. They've got their quarterback presumably, and they're building out a really good offensive line. So I like that value at 14. I thought he could have gone higher, but probably about right there. But I just like the Jets. Obviously they had to trade to get that pick, but I like that move to beef up the offensive line.
Yeah, Dalton's punching air right now because like the moment that the Jets actually start to invest in an offensive line, they ship him off after he just got beaten down for like the last 2 years. You really hate to see that. And then Carolina didn't do anything on their offensive line, or they drafted some late second rounder. So Darnold's going to like be moving into the same offensive line issues he was dealing with New York. But I like that pick. I think it's good for Zach Wilson and some of their skill position players. They obviously they're trying to, I guess you could say, like stimulate the offense here from a wide receiver standpoint. They've got Brashard Perryman. They pulled in the kid for Corey Davis from Tennessee. So I think the other piece of the puzzle that they need to try to fill is the offensive line. I think they're doing that, presumably playing Vera-Tucker at right guard just to kind of offset that line. If they play him at left guard, you know exactly where they're running every single play. So I like it, but Sai, passing it over to you. What do you think?
I think that's a solid choice, Evan. I think I appreciate it because it's a less obvious choice to go with that trade up, because I think a lot of us, there's probably very obvious players that are easy to point out, and I think that's a pretty solid choice. I really do like what the Jets did. I actually think even more than Vera-Tucker, which I mean was an amazing pick in the sense of like they needed a guard and they were able to go up and go get him, and it feels like they didn't give up a ton to do it. Whenever I look at that, I always look at like, what did you give up? And in terms of what they gave up, I don't think they gave up a ton to do it. So with that in mind, I think that's a terrific pick. I love the Javonte Williams pick though, the UNC running back. Like, not only did they get like their quarterback of the future and a guard of their future, I think they got their running back of the future in the same draft. And he is amazing. And I don't think shout out to Manhas. I've watched multiple, or Muskan as Zach likes to call him. I've watched multiple UNC games with him because he's a UNC grad. And every single time I watched the game, I was like, dude, who is this running back and why will he not go down? Like, he would break like 5 tackles every play. Like, it was like 10 yards every single play. And he's like a nice size. I'm telling you guys, look out for him. I know that's not who we're analyzing, but I just really wanted to like give him a shout out because he looks really good. So I think they just got a running back, a guard, a quarterback, and potentially a wide receiver and Elijah Moore of the future all in the same draft. I think that's an amazing offensive draft as far as, what you could do. The Jets are coming in and trying to make some waves in a division that's going to be pretty wide open over the next couple of years. I'm excited to see what happens there.
Speaking of schedule too, Jets are in Carolina to start the year. So Sam Darnold gets a quick crack at his old team.
That is going to be fun. Wow. I think that running back you guys are talking about from UNC, he's fantastic. And I think what people don't really realize is having a good running back is just as good as having a good right and left guard. And the best example of that is Jared Goff. Everyone's like, oh, what happened to Jared Goff? Jared Goff got his play action taken away. That's the only, big difference that happened to him. He couldn't have linebackers step up when they did the play action because they weren't scared of whomever they had back there versus Todd Gurley year before. So I think they're going to end up actually protecting Zach a little more because people have to bite on some of those. Because if he gets ahead of steam, kind of like how we saw with Zeke in his first couple of years, he's going to get 6-7 yards to carry, and that's going to kill a defense. So I think they're all right. I'm a little iffy on Perriman being a true number one. Maybe he could prove me wrong and do otherwise, but I think if he has a number one corner on him, he's not going to be able to get the separation some other guys have. But outside of that, I think the Jets fits are fantastic. I think they'll do really well this year.
I think Corey Davis is the number one, actually. I think they signed him.
Oh, you're right.
I think they paid him number one money. And I think Zach and Ev have come out and said that they don't think he can be a number one. I think the combination of those guys is good enough to form like a 1A, 1B, like Elijah Moore in there. They still have Crowder, right? Am I wrong?
It's
no,
Davis.
They definitely do. It's just tough because Crowder was the number one for basically last year, and that was
he was great though. Like when he was healthy, he was great. So he'll play the
I
slot.
miss him. I mean, I'm a Skins fan. I miss Crowder.
Yeah. They should probably ship him though, because it's like you got Davis, Mims. I think Perriman's actually gone, and then it's Crowder and Moore for the slot, and then Keelan Cole's there now too, as a nice little fourth option.
I didn't realize
their receivers aren't bad.
Wow, that's nice. I forgot about that.
Depth.
They're gonna be all right.
Yeah,
they're gonna be all right.
They'll screw it up, I'm sure, but
I mean,
It's a new regime.
True.
It's a new regime.
True.
Yeah.
All right, so
I like Salah.
staying in the skill position, I love that James brought up the value of running backs, despite the fact that the money says otherwise in a declining market. I'll stay in the skill position in running back phase. I'm going to nominate Najee Harris at 24 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it's gotten mixed reviews. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Here's my pitch. I love the pick for Pittsburgh because they definitely needed to ship off James Conner. I mean, he's a Pittsburgh guy. I love the story behind him, but he just was not a legitimate, fearsome running back number one. And that's kind of what Pittsburgh needs, right? You look at some of the couple, the running backs that they've had, the really successful ones over the last couple of years, Willie Parker, Jerome Bettis. I mean, these dudes, they made defenses legitimately fearful. I think Najee Harris is the best well-rounded back. You could use ETN for specific types of offensive schemes, which is why Meyer, traded up to get him in Jacksonville. But I think Najee Harris is all around an incredible running back that will, take some pressure off of Big Ben. James mentioned the play action. I mean, maybe that helps, Big Ben not get wrecked every single play. But overall, the reason it's got mixed reviews is because they could have filled some of the holes at offensive line, and they definitely didn't do that with Villanueva leaving and then also Pouncey retiring. So I'll kick it over to E first. E, what'd you think of the Najee Harris pick at 24?
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, they needed a playmaker back there. I mean, last year, it was hard to watch a team that was such a stacked receiving core that just without a running game, it's kind of like James said a bit ago with the play action. It's like without a running game in general, no matter how you want to work off of it, it's really, really hard to just drop back there and throw it a million times a game and win. So it gives them that extra element to the offense, and which I think is going to make them really hard to stop. And I don't usually love running backs in the first round, but I think Najee looks like a superstar. So I like it.
Go ahead, James.
Oh yeah. So I like it, but I kind of want to go back to a little bit what Zach said. Sounds like you're not all in on the whole let's not pay running backs a lot of money. Do you not think that you think they're worth it?
I don't think they're worth it because of what I saw with Zeke and Le'Veon the last couple of years. I mean, those are sample sizes of our superstars, our GOATs, and I mean, you can't deny that they've looked legitimately, speeds below where they were previously. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. No, I mean, I'm the same boat. I think these guys paying top dollar for running backs is just so tough. But that's why I love the pick. It's just hard because he's one cut away from that pick being, something that they don't get back until 2022. I mean, Evan knows as, Washington football team fan, we had all this hype around our running backs and injuries happen right before the season. And then it's just, they get shipped off the next year, and that's just kind of how it goes. So I think he's going to do awesome. I'm obviously worried just because running backs, they get hurt, but I think it's incredible. I mean, he can play in screens. He breaks tackles. I mean, he's exactly what they need. And honestly, he's a lot of fun to watch too. So I think it was a good pick.
I mean, how many people always want to criticize taking running backs in the first round? And admittedly, I understand if this was a top 15 pick or a top 20 pick, maybe a little bit more criticism goes into it. They're at the end of the first round, or mid 20s. They're sitting there with they're committing to this old man in Big Ben who wants to throw the ball 500 times, regardless of whether they have an offensive line.
Do you have no beef with the Steelers, man? Did I miss an episode?
No. Hear me out. I'm coming. I'm coming full circle here. You're committing to your veteran. Here's the thing, though. The reason I don't think they're committing as hard to the offensive line is that is a quick passing game. They have receivers for days, and they get that ball out quickly. What they were majorly lacking last year was a run game. And when they were undefeated at the beginning of the year, people weren't exposing that. When they started losing games, people were exposing that, where they just committed to taking the passing game away, and they had nobody that scared them. Najee Harris isn't just a running back, though. He is a receiver. He's going to come in there, and he's going to catch those screen passes. He's going to run those routes, and he can catch the ball in traffic, and he can make plays, and he is nasty with the capital N. He is so good. And I understand, taking running backs in the first round is, these days a cardinal sin. However, when we talk about the top running backs in the NFL, how many of them weren't at least first or if not high second round? Come on. Let's be real here. Everybody wants to, I'm not saying you can't get good value at running back later on. However, you just got an absolute playmaker that can completely transform the way your offense operates because of the way the Steelers situation was. If this was a different team, if this was the Colts or the football team or somebody like that who didn't need a running back and they were reaching in the first round to go get somebody like a Najee, then I completely disagree with you. That's why I think the ETN pick for Jacksonville was rough, because I'm dude, James Robinson was amazing last year. Why did you go get a running back with your first round pick? Oh, maybe because you have the bias of Trevor Lawrence and they also signed Tim Tebow as a tight end, so clearly I can't trust Urban Meyer to do anything correctly. So maybe I shouldn't be spending that much time on Jacksonville, which, by the way, we have to talk about later.
We have to talk. I was gonna say we have to talk about that.
Yeah. I just don't understand that, right? I think the Steelers were in a perfect position where they needed a running back, and whether they took, I think Najee was the best one. I think Najee was the right pick. I think even if they took ETN, I would have been okay, you took a running back, you needed one. I just don't see Jacksonville is the example of why I think taking a running back in the first round might be a bad pick. Steelers, I think, showed a good example of it, and I think Najee will pay dividends game one. Fantasy football, I'm looking at him in the top 10. That's how good I think he is.
What? All right, I can't let two things fly. First of all, you mentioned that Chicago is a great team. That's false. They're trash. Second,
wait. When did I say Chicago was a great team?
Selected in the top 10? Get out of here, Kuna.
Well, first of all, when did I say Chicago was a great team?
Oh no, you said Chicago is a good team earlier on this podcast. I will pull the clip and it's going on Instagram.
Yeah, I said
they've been in the playoffs the last 3 years. I mean, they're definitely a good team. They've done it without a quarterback.
They're a good team. They're a good team.
They're making the playoffs every year with backup quarterbacks playing quarterback for them with everything else being good except for quarterback. Zach, everything about Chicago is solid except for the quarterback position, which is why I said Chicago's a good team. Also, Najee Harris, Zach, the reason you're not going to succeed in fantasy football is because you're closed-minded. You take a rookie, put him in an amazing situation.
Oh, I love this.
at a running back position that can play 3 downs in a great offense, and you stick them in there the rookie year. How many of those guys don't pan out? Let's come on, man.
The ones that don't have good offensive lines.
Oh, come on, bro! He'll make it work. I mean, I'm not saying he's Saquon Barkley, but Saquon was in a similar situation, and Saquon balled out. I think Najee is going to be in a very. I drafted Saquon in the first round of that draft, and I didn't regret it. So
what about Zeke? When Zeke was a rookie, did Zeke get drafted in the first round? Because at that point, Dallas was
top 10.
He had to.
He was top 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was top 10. I think
Absolutely.
he got picked like 6th or 7th. Or so. He was top 10.
Yeah, he was up.
Okay,
there.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Christian McCaffrey was like what, 12, somewhere in the 12 to 15 range.
I don't think he was a first round pick.
No, McCaffrey was a first round pick too.
His rookie year.
I'm looking up right now.
No.
Look that up because
I don't think so.
I don't think he was. But I mean,
I don't even think he might not have even been like a second round pick.
No, he
was definitely second round. He's definitely second round.
Everyone thought he was a scat back only. His first year.
True.
Dude, he was drafted 8th overall.
His rookie year?
He was drafted 8th overall to the NFL. I'm telling you, he was a first round pick. And as he should be, because he didn't just get drafted as a running back. He was a multifaceted player. Like he could play receiver. He could do everything.
Right.
Wait, are we talking fantasy or real?
No, in real life, he got picked round 1, pick 8 out of Stanford to the Carolina Panthers.
I thought we were talking fantasy.
I was talking fantasy. I thought
we were on different pages.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Oh wait, Sai, were you saying top 10 in terms of like you would pick him in the top 10 of like an NFL draft or a fantasy?
No, of a fantasy football draft.
Oh,
I still disagree.
We flipped twice.
Right.
I said
went full circle twice.
I said I'd take him top 10 in fantasy. Like that's what I said. And I stand by that. I stand by that. All right, anyway.
Larry, we got to move on to our final player because we got to switch over to NBA pretty soon here.
Okay. Well, that's me, I guess.
It is you. It is you.
Man, I keep going back and forth, and I've talked about these guys extensively. Every part of me wants to make the Homer pick, and I stand by that because I think the Kwity Paye pick to Indy is amazing.
I love it.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I don't understand how he's available to us, but if he fills a huge need for us, he's absolutely amazing, and he's an amazing guy. His story is incredible. So it's really hard for me not to pick him. The only reason I'm not picking him is because I'm an Indy fan, and I don't want to just go pick my Homer. So instead, I'm going to pick Zach's team because I'm obsessed with Kyle Pitts, and I don't want to stop talking about him. Like I think Kyle Pitts is going to be a Hall of Fame player. I can't stop talking about this. He is going to completely change the perception of like what a tight end could be coming out of college. Like that is how good I think he is. I genuinely believe that he will be one of the best receiving tight ends of our generation. I know you guys might think I'm crazy. I don't think the dude dropped a football his entire time in college. He played, I think, quarterback and transitioned to tight end, but he could play receiver if he wanted to play receiver. He's got it all. He's not going to be the best blocker. However, he will genuinely walk in day one and be a top 3 receiving tight end in the NFL, in my opinion, like right behind guys like Travis Kelce and George Kittle. I think he's that good. I think he's got that kind of ceiling, and I think he's in a perfect situation to succeed, like at least statistically. I'm not saying the Falcons are going to go win, go make the playoffs next year. However, like with Matt Ryan there and Calvin Ridley on the outside, and maybe Julio based on whether they trade him or not, like Pitts is going to be going out there with linebackers covering him. Are you joking? This guy's going to have a former MVP who had Austin Hooper as a top 5 receiving tight end 2 years ago throwing to him his first season. Like, want to talk about fantasy football? Guys, look at Kyle Pitts and tight ends. He is going to be so good, and I'm so stoked for him because I think he went to like such a perfect situation because any other team in that top 5 would have been much harder for him to like find that success. But right off the bat, he's going to be playing with a veteran that I believe, if I remember correctly, towards the tail end of Tony Gonzalez's career, played with Matt Ryan and Tony Gonzalez played together right towards the end of his career. Like, I think there's going to be some pretty cool dynamics going on there. And I think Kyle Pitts is going to take over the world with tight end. And I love it so much because we've never seen a tight end go that high, and everybody's afraid to draft a tight end high. And I'm just so glad the Falcons are like, let's just commit to it. So I think Kyle Pitts is going to be so good.
Oh, okay.
Hall of Famer.
What is James? James, you've been shaking your head a little bit. What do you think, man?
No, I was shaking it in total agreement. One thing I do have to chime in on real quick. You did say former MVP. So what year was that, Zach? That Matt Ryan MVP?
Oh, that was 2016, and he was also the Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I got it. I'm just saying, former is like we're getting really far away from former now. In the same way I was all district in high school, so I was former all district. I'm not a Matt. I hate Matt Ryan. I can't stand Matt Ryan, but I think Pitts is going to help with what I hate about Matt Ryan, which is why does he have anxiety in the red zone? He has pure anxiety in the red zone. It's never made sense to me in my entire life. I've watched so many Falcons games. I keep hearing about Julio. You got to throw it to Julio once. You mess up. Pitts is going to be there, and no one's going to be able to cover him. I've watched his tape. He's unbelievable. And I think exactly like he said, he's going to change the trajectory of tight ends moving forward. They're going to start getting picked that high because, like, they're going to do the same thing the Patriots did when you send, like, your slot guy, and if the linebacker goes with him, you got your tight end in the seam, and if not, you have the guy in the flat. And, like, one-on-one Kyle Pitts, no one's guarding him. Nobody. Not one person. I've seen him have one-handed catches on the sidelines. I've seen him catch it low, catch it high. I've seen him hurdle over people. He's the future, man. I think he's going to be one of, just like you said, best tight ends of our generation. Great pick. And I hope he can help your boy Matt Ryan, who needs therapy in the red zone or something.
I mean, he might even help on defense because we only have 50 players signed at this point in time because we're in such salary cap hell. So, you know, hey.
I thought you were going to bring up Julio's tackle stats because Matt throws so many picks. But I got you.
Can we agree that Julio Jones would be like a top 3 safety in the NFL if he wanted to be? Like,
absolutely.
Like you could literally
safety. Oh my gosh, he'd be lethal.
And
like
not only that, the dude runs like a 4.3, 4.4 40. He'd be like Cam. Exactly, he'd be like Cam.
Like that would be so fun to watch. I would be all in for that.
He'd be Ed Reed and Cam Chancellor like combined. Like, he'd be ridiculous.
I'd stick Andrew Luck back there too, man. He's leveled some guys in Indianapolis. I'd maybe stick him back there as like a.
He has actually.
You remember that fumble play where
that's what I was thinking of.
Where his he threw it to his running back fumbled, and the guy picks it up, and then Luck decks the linebacker, and then he fumbles. Oh, that's one of my favorite highlights ever. Please watch that.
Evan Maroney, that's what it was. It's simple.
Man, that's tough. Evan,
I love it.
You went on the Kyle Pitts?
Oh yeah. No, completely agree. I think the Falcons benefited similar to, I think, with the Sewell pick with Detroit. Like, a couple teams like benefited a lot from this like quarterback craze. Teams trying to get up to get their quarterback. So I think there's a couple teams that really benefited from that, one of which is the Falcons getting Pitts. So yeah, completely agree. I mean, matchup nightmare. I think he'll tear it up from day one.
Do you guys remember how tall he is?
I can't remember. He's tall though.
He's really tall.
He's tall and he's fast and he can jump and he can cut.
If you guys, oh my goodness, he's 6'6", 240. Dog, what?
James, do you have his 40? Does it say his 40 on there?
I think it's next thing down the list.
Kyle Pitts is 6'6", 240.
No, he's not 6'6".
He's 6'6", 240, and he ran a 4.44. Are you?
Did you hear that?
Me?
Did you hear that? He ran a 4.44 at 6'6", 240. Zach, that's like Jadeveon Clowney numbers, bro.
This is wild, man. This is crazy. I mean, this is unbelievable. This guy's.
And he's got the best hands in this draft.
Probably
better than any other receivers. Like, it is ridiculous.
If you guys haven't peeped his highlight tape from last season, it's some of the like ridiculous catches. Absolutely ridiculous catches.
It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah,
it's beautiful. It's football.
Yeah, definitely watch. I can't even imagine him in high school, man. Could you imagine that?
One other point I want to make is that
Stonebridge corner trying to cover him.
Hey, state champs.
Basketball and football. That's
right. We won the state championship in basketball?
We did, man.
I was shocked when I heard that too.
When did we get good at
basketball? Lang is the head coach, right?
Yeah.